G'day everyone, and welcome to this session. Welcome to this session today with System 1357. And today we're joined with Scotty Schindler and Brendan Rogers. How are you guys today?
Awesome.
Really well. Got the thumbs
Thanks
up. Good. That's it. We're all ready to go.
Got my coffee. Good to go.
And today we're going to be discussing around creating high impact leaders. And in particular, we're going to be getting a lot of great insights from someone who is I guess you'd call him a professional in this arena about creating high impact leaders, and that's Brendan Rogers. But Brendan is a business and leadership coach. He's owner of Leader by Design. He's a podcast host of Culture of Leaders, and he's the co-host of the LinkedIn Local Central Coast. And there's a new venture started now, Local Linked?
The Local Link.
The Local Link, which we'll probably hear more about that and how it all ties in together. But welcome, Brendan. Can you share a little bit about your background and how you got here today?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, thanks for having me again, to yourself and Scotty and the System 1357 community. I guess the shorter version of the story is that I started full-time work when I was 19 in a very sexy industry called container shipping. I don't know anybody that leaves school dying to go into container shipping, but look, what it taught me about business, the opportunity to work with people locally, nationally, and internationally, and eventually lead teams locally, or nationally and internationally, leads large global system implementation type projects, business improvement activities, leading large customer service teams, leading international agency groups, managing agency organizations in different parts of the world, having the opportunity to venture and work in all those different various countries, probably I think it's about 12 or 14 countries in the end, was just unbelievable business experience. It's actually the experience that a lot of people don't get nowadays, even when they go to big global companies. The roles are so fragmented, and with centralization and offshoring and stuff like that, which is all really good and can be productive stuff for business. But as getting your head around business and the complete picture, it's harder to get now. So I had the privilege of really doing that, and I spent almost 24 years in the global shipping space through a number of companies. And off the back of that, probably about 3-4 years before I left or was actually made redundant from the global shipping space, I was planning my exit. I was starting to feel out of line, out of kilter, out of value alignment with the organisation I was with, and just felt like I wanted to do my own thing, or at least do something different. So that's when I sort of started to connect with various people, and it was sometime after that I ran into or had a conversation with Scotty. Somehow we got connected, and yeah, I guess from there I left or got made redundant in 2015. Probably the happiest person that's ever experienced a redundancy in their life. So I was very happy. I'd been with the company 11 years. So, there was a decent payout attached to that. I was on a good wicket. And then from there, I decided long before that I was going to go into some sort of consulting business. And I was very lucky through building a networking connections over the previous 3 or 4 years. I left on a Friday, started consulting in a business on the Monday. So that was good. But in some respects, it wasn't good because it sort of felt a bit too easy. I didn't really respect the fact that I'd put 3 or 4 years of hard work and building relationships into that. So that's been my journey. And just over the course of the last 9, almost 10 years this year in August, September, I've been in business for myself. I spent a couple of years of that space working for one of my clients as a full-time chief operating officer to help their business and build for scale and sustainability. Outside of that, I've been working with business owners, business leaders, helping them to manage themselves better, grow their teams, and grow their business. And that's basically what's brought me to here today.
Well, that's a lot.
And it's been a fantastic journey, mate.
Sorry?
It's been a fantastic journey, I have to say. Again, I cannot, even though, when you're working with people in organizations, you don't always like and love the people you're working with. And maybe, some of those people didn't enjoy and love working with me either. But it's a great thing about business, your own business is, yes, it's a hard slog every day. And, although you can make it easier, the more deliberate you are about the actions you take and things like that. But you really get to work with good people, and it's actually, you get a choice about who you work with. And I've been really fortunate over the years I've worked with some people that I thought were good people and hasn't quite worked out. But over time, I've got a little bit better at sort of sussing that sort of stuff out and really working with quality people. And I love helping and hopefully nurturing and coaching quality people.
And that's true too. It's always people, whether you're working for yourself or whether you're working in a business, there's always people involved.
Always. I mean, they are. My view is that, and I don't think this is a startling view by any stretch, but it's people that drive business, isn't it? Even if all of my team is overseas, so offshore located, but at the end of the day, every person in my business helps drive the business. If I don't have them, I couldn't do the things that I'm able to do today, and I couldn't achieve the level of business that I've been able to achieve, and I couldn't run the amount of things that I've been involved in and continue to be involved in. I just can't do that without people, and ideally good people.
Which comes to the point, there's probably three things to cover today in terms of communicating, like effective communication with people. And it will be like managing teams with ease. We'd love it just to be easy, but still but managing people, it's hard. And how do we also communicating clearly? How do we get that message across? And earning respect and trust. These are probably three big key points in managing people and getting the best out of our business. And you mentioned before, well, actually, I mean, we spoke previously about overnight success stories, and leadership. We'd always love other people just to do the work for us, but it's still getting in those trenches and having that experience. So even if it's in the container shipping, it's that experience that you had and the people you connected with that's led you to where you are today. But it's still something that you stepped out. Then you stepped out of the container shipping and went into business. You still had to take actions in that. There's still decisions to be made. So when what's something going through your mind, and what are you seeing when people are stepping out of their comfort zone? What are some things that they can think about or apply when they're looking to make those tough decisions?
Well, I think the key thing is exactly what I did, is just start to hang around people that are doing things that you'd like to do or what you think you'd like to do. So, business, and again, this is, no different to, I guess, the relationship I've got with Scotty here, but, Scotty's done various things, he's achieved various things. And again, like you said, we're joking overnight success, not really. I mean, a lot of years, decades of hard work, hard toil, pain, sacrifice, all that sort of stuff. And that's made him, that real true to life person, and those lived experiences that he can share and help other people learn, and hopefully learn quicker than what we've had to learn and go through those experiences. So that's the thing. What's that saying from Jim Rohn? The average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So there's nothing more powerful than people. I've created a whole model around my business for people. It's called the People Impact System, and the People is an acronym, and I can go into that sort of later in whatever detail you like. But ultimately, it's people that drive stuff. It's people that help you learn. It's people that give you perspective on other things, other ways you can tackle stuff, other things you can learn, other approaches you can take. If you think you can sit there in your own silo and be the best person you can be, then you're kidding yourself. Even with AI, AI is a great tool. We talked about it before. You ran a session the other day, but it's you've still got to have a level of knowledge to know what to put into a system like that. What sort of information? How could you handle this question? How could you take the AI in a certain path? If you haven't got experience with that industry, that business, coaching style, whatever your speciality is, then you don't really know what question to ask. If you ask AI, it'll give you something back, but it's going to be so vanilla because it's just generic stuff. You're not able to give it context. So I just cannot stress the lack of sexiness about just building quality relationships with people, learning from people, being open to grow and learn yourself. And if you stay on that path, then it's just amazing what you can achieve. I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm really proud of this, and I don't share it enough because I feel like sometimes I don't want to come across as skiting or anything like that. But when I've developed my consultancy and coaching business, The level of profitability I've had in this business has been at different degrees. So generally around that sort of 45, 50% has been the minimum. Now, my journey of learning, whether that's learning different systems, learning how to operate a little bit differently. I had an offshoring background through my global shipping experience anyway. So the ability to offshore and to get good people offshore and stuff like that. Now I currently operating my business at 83% net profitability. Now, that's a really good, healthy number. I've got no idea what great net profit margin would look like for a business like mine, but I don't care because I'm running my own race. It's good to get standards and understand what's happening in industries and organizations, but all of that is not, it's not me specific. Yes, I'm implementing certain things, but I'm learning through communities. I'm learning through other people. I'm taking the best of what I think is what's going to work for my business, and I'm adapting that to how I can make these things happen. And ultimately, business is about making money, right? I want to operate the best and the most efficient business I can for me, because that's actually my job to help others do that. So if I'm not running my business confidently, effectively, efficiently, and with the maximum net profit that I can run, then it's a bit hypocritical to say I'm trying to educate others to do that.
Which is important. It comes back. Which is important. It comes back to value. What's the value? Is the business bringing, right? And it's still the value, and people value your business because they're in there and using it, and also the teams, and the people you manage. And we spoke about AI, and there's still a level of understanding. We still need to get understand what are our outcomes. What are we looking to achieve? And I guess what's the hardest part that a leader might face right now? Like with AI, what's the hardest part a leader might face right now?
Well, I think as far as I'm concerned, and we'll put AI aside for this, because what happened, and dare I say it, bring up the COVID word again, but basically the biggest problem I see in businesses for a long time, i.e. since COVID, has been getting performance out of their people. Now, I'm not blaming the people, I'm blaming the leader. Right, the leader is not setting the direction. They haven't got a system and an ecosystem in place in order to drive performance. They haven't got a system in place to identify and clarify and set expectations about what good looks like versus not good. Setting metrics and measures of success, all those sort of fundamental things that happen. And what leaders and when we say leaders, business owners or a corporate leader, anybody leading a team, that when you're in an organization physically and in an office space, there's a number of things just happen by osmosis. You're around people, you can clarify things, you can have a few conversations, it doesn't feel inefficient. But when you're all of a sudden your team is either fully remote or in a hybrid type environment, those conversations aren't happening. So you actually have to think about how you lead more deliberately. You have to think about the structure that you might need to have in place in order to make sure that your team stays on point. They're going in a direction, you know where the direction is, they know where the direction is, and they know what part of that element that they need to deliver on in order to stay in that direction. And that literally is and continues to this day, and in my view will continue for quite a long time, is the biggest challenge for leaders today, getting performance and the level of performance that they want and expect out of their team.
And I'm just thinking about this, the people impact system. Like this sounds like how do we make an impact? How does the business make an impact? And can you share a little bit more about the people impact system?
Mate, I can. And what I talk a little bit about is if we sort of talk about our straggling avatar and where we want to try and strive to get people to. So this high impact leader is what I like to talk about quite a lot, because it's a really clear, what sort of impact do you want to make? Well, that's self-driven, that's self-determined by the person I'm working with. Sometimes that's community impact, sometimes that's financial impact, people impact, whatever it is. But people drive the business and processes around the business. And then often business leaders that I'm working with, they're really in that sort of hands-on hustler stage, which is that first stage. They're movers and they're shakers and they've got the business to a point, but effectively if they take too much time off, or even if they are on holidays, they're taking calls left, right and center, and they're keeping the business going. And again, all businesses start from that point, but it's then about educating yourself, growing yourself in order to move up to this high impact leader. So for people, what I put together was just an acronym about how I can start to strip out so much of the good stuff that's out there in the leadership space. And when you're ready, please consume it as much as you can. But I love the 80-20 rule. I think Scotty calls it something else, but it's the 80-20 rule about making sure that, there are 20, I believe there's about 20% of leadership activities that you can do, which will have 80% of the impact of what you're trying to achieve. And I've just said, there's perceive, which is the first P of people. Perceive is really about self-awareness and understanding your impact on others, and situational awareness. There's the E, which is envision, about getting clarity about the direction and where we're going, and there's various things that sit underneath that. But basically, when we're moving in the right direction, and I believe as a leader, as a business owner, it's your role to make sure you're setting that vision, setting that true north, setting that sort of rally cry and that perspective going forward. Then you've got optimize, and optimize sits around some of your metrics, and so you're knowing your numbers and your financials, and a little bit more of the technical side of things. But you can use those numbers to then optimize your business. So how we read them and work through that. Then we've got P, the second P is perform. And that's where, to me, around performance, and this is where I've developed the Master One-on-One Meetings program, because that's designed purely since COVID. I did some of this work, but not in the whole. I hadn't had it developed in my own journey of leadership in a full system, in a full ecosystem. So not only one-on-one meetings, but the perform stage is really about accountability, conversations, setting expectations, and one-on-one meetings is a key driver of some of that. And then L is the leverage part. So that's when your team comes in. How do you start to learn to grow a team? How do you start to understand, delegate properly, so that it actually stuff gets done and people feel supported in that process? So that's the leverage of other people around you. And then the E, geez, I've just lost the E. Oh, evaluate. So that's really more about the strategic decisions. It's a bit of a struggle when your own model and you think, evaluate. But evaluate is really when you start to think more strategically about that business. Some talk about legacy. What legacy do you want to have in your business with your people, and succession planning, those sorts of things come into that. So a lot of these things they're not new. Right. All I've done is package in a way that says, I love people. I know that people, in my view, people drive everything. So why not develop a people system? Eventually, I got to a people impact system, and I started to build these pillars around that, and some of the things that I wish I knew this when I was starting to lead a team. Because even if I had just a few of these tools in my arsenal, and I had a mentor that could really help me and support me in learning some of this stuff, then my journey wouldn't have been so hard in those first few years of learning how to lead a team. And that's where I've sort of just been developing a lot of my thinking and trying to strip out some of the stuff that I love about leadership, but really does that need, is that really part of the major impact process of becoming a leader and being the best leader, being the best business owner that you can be, and ultimately having more money, more time, more freedom, because that's really what we all want to have eventually.
Well, and we still need people. Still need people to help us to get to where we want and to get.
We will need people for a long, long time. Robots, whatever. But look, this connection that we're having today. Again, I haven't, Scotty and I haven't had a decent conversation for a long time. Andrew, you and I connect every now and again, but there's nothing greater than just sitting down and having a conversation with people, whether it's sort of virtually like this or whether it's around a coffee, a table or whatever. That, like, people is what drives. People is what gives other people energy, not robots.
Well, I wrote this down, the people system, and it's kind of looking like a journey too. Like, you're taking people through a journey, and perception is such a big thing. Like, perceive, like that. Perception and seeing out there with I guess in the digital age now too, like we got talking about before, you talking about robots and the digital age, and that perception, we still see a lot of things and we act on what we see, but as you go through the journey and you go through, what was it, envision, optimize, perform, leverage, and evaluate, there's quite a journey that you take people through, and we usually just want an impact right now. We just want everything done now, all our pain's gone away. But what does it mean for leaders who have gone through this journey themselves, and what's their impact they're having on others?
So a story I often use is an old client of mine that I finished working with about, it'd be probably definitely more than 12 months ago now, I think. And I said earlier about the impact that people want to make is really self-determined. So, excuse me, it's self-determined. Now, when I started working with this business owner, and I worked with him for a bit over 2 years, he envisioned himself in having a larger organisation. It was about 8 people at the time, managing multi-million-dollar health projects. Mainly, it was an engineering consulting business, so lots of opportunity for big dollars in that sort of space, and big contracts and those sorts of things. And they worked on a number of sort of decent sized projects over the time and done various things. So, excuse me, he was really keen to grow that business, and growth to him looked like more people, more revenue coming in. He was very generous with his people, so he wasn't a guy that was just trying to line his own pockets. He was very generous, and he paid his people really well. To cut a long story short, what eventually came to be is that the business is still operating, but it's just him. The business was downsized, and there was a number of factors associated with that. But ultimately, what he came to be true to himself was that he needed and wanted to spend more time with his family. He had 2 young teenage boys, and they had a few challenges here and there, but he wasn't spending enough time with his family. His wife was involved in her little business as well, so she was doing her thing. They didn't have family or close family close to them, so they were always under pressure with stuff. So ultimately, what happened was that we were able to make some steps. The business was able to downsize, and within a month of downsizing, the goal was for him and his family to go on a 3-month trip around Australia, which is something they've never ever done before, and that's what they did. And he was able to do that stress-free, mortgage-free as well in the process. So he was able to pay off his mortgage over those couple of years and get sorted, and basically live the life and have that time, freedom, money that he wanted to have. But he just didn't have the right support, or he had a different plan about what success and what impact looked like. So at the moment, he's having impact with his family. He's spending time with his kids. He's still running that business. He's running it as a company, but as a solo person. And he brings in contractors when he needs other experience in other projects, and he picks and chooses the projects that he works on. So he's enjoying himself. It's been about 3 months since I've caught up with him, but he's having a great time. That to me is massive impact.
Which we often, sometimes see that we think business success or company success is just this straight linear line. It's just up and up and up, and everything's just hunky-dory. But it goes in waves and cycles and patterns, and it always goes up and down, and we learn from those, and we try and balance everything out, and so that's all part of the journey. I think it's all part of, and then we can use that experience to share with others. And I guess this is how you're able to come in and have those conversations with coming up with a plan. And it might not be just a straight success, but it's the conversations that we have with others that helps us get to where we want to, or what we want to achieve.
Absolutely. And what I would say, mate, is that this business owner took complete responsibility for everything. He knew that the entitlement that he'd created in the team, the way the business was running, the lack of profitability in the business, the way the projects were being managed, all that, he knew that he was a driving force behind that. Good, bad, ugly, whatever it was. So they're the type of people I can work with really, really well, because they know what they can control, they know what they can't control, and what they can control, and they take ownership for that, and they make decisions and they stick with it. They just need somebody like me to give them a level of confidence that they're moving in a decent direction. Or if they're not quite sure on the direction, I'm not there to make decisions for them a lot of the time, but I am there to see them, to help them see different perspectives on a situation. How has this happened? Is this really what you're looking to do? His business is far more profitable now than what it was when he had those 8 people. His expenses are far lower. The stress involved in his environment day to day is far less. So, you know, it's what we can control. Like Scotty said before we hit the record button, people can be, excuse me, people can be jealous about, what's been achieved and stuff like that. But he's taken control of his life. He's taken deliberate steps. He's put goals in place. He's worked hard to achieve those. He's got good people around him. He's one of those good people that helps others. And, people that are willing to do that and take sort of their own agency, they're the people that do stuff in life. And they're the people I love to work with, because you know that they're invested. They're going to do stuff. They're open to listening, but also they're confident to say, hey, Brendan, push back on that. I want to take this way, and great, my job is to help them and move them forward. So that personal agency is a massive factor for me, and it's one of those filters I've learned to really nail in on, just by a good conversation before we have some sort of engagement, understand a bit of their background and how they take responsibility for certain challenges in their business and stuff like that. If you haven't got that, then it can be a pretty tough engagement to take on. So I think it's, in my experience, excuse me, it's best not to.
And you mentioned their responsibility. It's such a ineffective, where does, actually, Scotty, this is a question that I'd like to throw your way. Responsibility and effective leadership. What does it mean for a business owner to, what's the impact responsibility has on a business owner to keep it functioning, to keep a business going?
Well, they are responsible. See, you can delegate accountability, but you can't delegate responsibility. So you can hold someone accountable to getting tasks done or getting their job done, but you can't delegate that responsibility that you have as a business owner or a leader in making sure that everything gets done and achieved, right? So that's a saying I've had for a long time anyway. You just can't delegate responsibility. Ultimately, as the leader, you're responsible for making sure those outcomes and whatever that is followed through with and achieved. The accountability of the day-to-day task, that's up to the individuals, and motivating those people is important. So it's like system 1357. It's the number one system is people, and this is what Andrew talks about. Now, system one is people first, people over everything, and looking after those people, whether it's you as the leader, or whether it's the people around you, whether the suppliers, staff, clients, it's all about people. It's the number one system. And that ecosystem is up to us to control. And it's our responsibility, not everyone else's, it's our responsibility to make sure that environment, that ecosystem is alive and well and thriving, in whether it's growing or retracting, shrinking, it doesn't matter. It's our responsibility, whether through those cycles of life and business, that everything is working the way we want it to work. And it's our responsibility to do that. That includes things like goal setting, or what do you call it? Envisioning for E. What's the vision look like? And that's our responsibility to do that. I said earlier, there's those people who make things happen, those people who watch things happen, and those people who wonder what happened. And if highly effective leaders, I'm going to guess Brendan's going to agree with me, highly effective leaders, high impact leaders, is that the right terminology for you, Brendan?
Yeah, that's what it is, buddy.
High impact leaders are people who make things happen for themselves and those around them. They don't sit there and watch. They don't stick their head in the sand, as I call it. They go out and try to make things happen. And more often than not, they achieve goals that they wanted to achieve for both them, the team, the business, and those around them. So that's responsibility. You can't pass that off. If it's to be, it's up to me. It's my responsibility to follow through as a leader.
Spot on, mate. And what I would add to that is just sort of brings back some memories. I was lucky enough to interview a guy called Brad Sugars a little bit of time ago. So Brad's the creator, founder, global chairman of Action Coach. I think they are the largest sort of coaching franchise business in the world. And Brad's a Brizzy boy. And I connected with him, and he now lives in Las Vegas. But he said, one of his mentors said to him, and he repeated to me, Brendan, you get the people you deserve. And ultimately, that comes back to what Scotty's saying and what we definitely agree on around the responsibility side of things, that if you take responsibility for that statement and say, okay, well, not discounting. There are some people in the world that are just not competent or not doing the role that they should be doing, and whatever. Okay, that's stuff that, and that's when, that affectionate term called performance management comes in. But ultimately, if you realize that it's your actions or inaction that has created something, an expectation or whatever, then you can control that. You can change your action. You can do something differently or not do something. You can't control anybody else in this world. You might think you can, but they have a choice. They have a level of freedom. You can't control that. You can only control and take responsibility for yourself and your own actions.
And that's even important in managing teams, right? I mean, you got the person you were coaching there who had a great business, and then it just went down to him. Like that's still managing people, still managing teams. Scotty, you managed teams in your lifetime as well, and so creating high impact leaders. How effective can we be in? I guess we can put the opportunities out for people. We can put the opportunities out there. We can create the opportunities, and like you said, Brendan, it's still up to them to make that choice or make that decision. So I guess leading into that, just trying to think, what is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of, I guess I'm leading into managing team. Like we spoke about high impact leaders and like being a leader, but I suppose we haven't sort of broken down how we're still got to manage people, but how do we manage teams? So how do we get multiple people? Let's come to clear communication. So right now I'm trying to work out what's my clear question I'm trying to ask.
Well, let me help you out a bit, mate, because I think where we need to go is that clear communication is a good way. One of the best way that I've found for clear communication is one-on-one meetings. And early in my time as a coach, I focused a lot more on team meetings. And don't get me wrong, team meetings are super important, super valuable when done right. But what I underestimated was that most leaders, business owners, whatever, are not skilled in facilitating groups of people. I was really fortunate in my early life in shipping that I facilitated from quite an early age because I was thrown into the deep end and I needed to facilitate groups of senior managers around Australia when we did a Australian-based centralisation project. So they saw me as someone to be able to do that. I don't know what they saw at the time, but I was so privileged to have that sort of experience. So I sort of just assumed that people have that sort of experience, and they don't. And effectively, that's what team meetings are. They are facilitating groups of people. You've got to be able to read the room a bit and understand dynamics and just, pick points out of people and question things and challenge people and stuff like that. And that's a skill you've got to learn and develop. Master one-on-one meetings, that's how it was devised off the back of COVID, but then saying, well, you know what? The most comfortable place that people have as far as talking to others is just in a one-on-one setting. Yeah, we can run into someone and have a quick chat and we see nothing of it. But then we run into a group of people and there's always that one or two people that are a little bit standoffish and not so comfortable. So one-on-one meetings is where the place starts. Now, again, I've repeated a number of times, I've got a program, Master One-on-One Meetings. So, that program is devised to tell you the how to do this, but I'll tell you a bit more about it, the what to do. Well, effectively, there's 3 parts to Master One-on-One Meetings. The first part is the weekly rhythm, and that's the weekly performance meeting, and that is focused on rhythm. Okay? The second part is, the monthly, and that's really on the review process. So the monthly development meeting is reviewing what we've done last month and look to the future for the next month. And then the quarterly process, which I call the quarterly strategic growth meeting, is really more around that reflection. So the 3 R's, the rhythm, the review, the reflection. And that's really about, okay, how have we gone over the last 3 months in achieving our quarterly strategic growth goal? And what are we going to do moving forward? And again, in my program, I've got systems and templates and stuff around that. But if you can excuse me, sorry guys, if we can put that in place and have that sort of ecosystem in place for one-on-one meetings and have that deliberate time and that deliberately scheduled into our calendars. So whether you're in person or whether you're remote, those things are happening. I actually prefer that they happen online because I tell leaders, well, just record it. You can have a direct conversation with people. You're not needing to worry about notes or anything like that. Chuck an AI tool onto your meeting recording. You've got a transcript. You've got everything you need. You can just focus on the genuineness of the conversation with a little bit of structure around that. And if you put that in place, it is absolutely amazing the change that can happen in the team as the individuals, but then also the collective, because you're starting to get people to realize and to understand what good looks like, what 3 things they're going to focus on achieving in this next week, what their greater growth goal is, how they're going to start to develop in the team and maybe develop towards, whatever their longer term plan and objectives are for the organization or maybe outside of the organization. And that's a really simple framework, but a very, very powerful framework to improve performance in your team day to day.
I loved how you mentioned rhythm there.
It's so critical in everything though, isn't it? Mate, you've got so much more rhythm in your body than what I have, but it's like it is everything. Okay, in sport we probably call it more momentum, but it's you've got to get into a rhythm. Rhythm is what builds that momentum, and the momentum is what builds progress. And all of a sudden, people don't realize that they're moving faster than what they were. They're on a bit of a clearer direction. So, and the rhythm also starts to create the discipline. Because one of the greatest challenges I have with leaders, particularly very busy business owners, as you'd understand, is putting some time aside each week to spend with your direct reports and to make sure that you're helping them stay on track. If they don't do that, then frankly, how do you expect to get high performance out of your team if you're not prepared to spend deliberate time with them? To me, that's a mathematical equation that just doesn't work.
And that's important for like that attention, giving the attention to them, and implementing that rhythm. Because we see it in sports as well. I know you've got a history of working with some sports clubs and stuff, Brandon. So we see it right through, like in business. It's all team impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was really fortunate to play a semi-professional level of football, of sport. Scotty's got his own sort of war stories with sports and stuff like that, and championships and whatever. So I learnt so much from the team environment. What I wasn't clever enough to know, certainly in those days of playing a semi-professional level, was how they translated into the corporate, into the business world. And that's something where, as I maybe got a little bit older and maybe a little bit wiser, I'm not too sure, but I've started to link some of that stuff together and say, well, what I do here, and even how I look at other players that I've played with over the years, and some players that played very, very high level now, then the type of player they were and how they either fitted into what Patrick Lencioni's developed, a guy in the States, the ideal team player model, and where they weren't that ideal team player and the traits around that. And it's just sport and putting that into the business context. There's just so much overlap that we just don't realize when we're in it. It's not until later. And again, this is where I think great mentors like Scotty and yourself working with businesses now, and hopefully myself, we've been through some of that journey. We've been able to connect the dots, so hopefully we can help others connect the dots earlier than what we did.
And we hope so. And that probably leads into something I want to cover, which is the earning respect and trust, which is it's a big thing, like trust. You put so much trust in yourself, like your own systems and processes, but then you've got to put so much trust in your team, and you've also got to earn that. So having these one-to-one meetings, having these conversations, it's all a part of the process to build that up. Do you have any tips or strategies that you're seeing high impact leaders use to earn respect and trust?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. This one's going to cost, it'll cost people a lot of money, unfortunately. And that is basically what I call learn their stories. It actually doesn't sound like a lot of money you need to spend on doing that. All you need to do is spend time. So what I encourage, if particularly with the Master One-on-One meeting side, as a starting point, if this is something you think is really going to drive performance, and I'm a big advocate of it, I've seen it and used it myself, and use it for some of my coaching clients today based on on one of the programs that I deliver with them. So if they have an interest, if they're more interested than interesting is a term that we use a lot. So if you're more interested in learning about that person, learning their stories, a bit of their background, a bit of their upbringing, it starts to fill in some of the gaps of maybe how they behave around certain things, how they operate, how they think, what their own values are. So just that process of being more interested in the person than just trying to sort of push your own agenda and things all the time, it's amazing the rapport that builds. And isn't that the starting point for starting to develop trust? Oh, actually, Brendan actually cares about some of this stuff. He's asking me about my family, and that's a starting point for then, how's Jackie, wife or partner or whatever, or little Johnny's son, didn't he have his birthday the other day? Like, it's those little connection points that absolutely cost no money at all, just a little bit of people's time and a little bit of care from each other to start to learn their stories. And if you do that, that's a foundation for so much. Now, I could talk to you about, the 5 dysfunctions of a team and models and all this sort of stuff. And believe me, I use them. They are fantastic tools and models. But ultimately, it always starts with people having a little bit of interest about each other and the stories. Then you learn from there. And if you continue to care enough, you'll start to work more closely together. You'll start to appreciate differences that we have about different things because upbringings or whatever, and you can just start to work together better because you learn, or you've taken the time to learn their stories. Honestly, it is that simple.
It's like trying to find some common interests. You're looking for that common ground, I suppose.
What do you do when you first meet people? You do exactly the same thing, don't you? Like, it's something that, we're not all great at it, and to me, these are skills you can develop. But if you genuinely have an interest in learning more about others, then you'll get good at asking the questions. What did you like to do as a child? What really excited you, and what challenges did you have? Now, they're not questions you just dive into straight away. You sort of small talk and lead up to it. But if you've got a relationship with people in the work environment and they've been working together for a little while, then don't you think it's a little bit weird that you don't know a bit more about people? I'm not sitting here and saying, I need to be Pollyanna and everyone needs to be going and having drinks together and barbecues together on weekends. I'm not saying that at all, but just having an understanding of people's background and a respect for who they are. I mean, I find that fascinating. It's interesting. Like, you got no idea who you walk past in the street, do you? And like, what they could have done in their life, what they've experienced, particularly the older generation, some of the stuff that these guys and girls that are 60, 70, 80 years of age, what they've experienced over time. They just, well, I guess I can't call myself a young person, but the younger generation now is like, they'd be flabbergasted with like, wow, that's amazing. And people just aren't taking the time to be more interested in others and what they're about.
And it also comes down to respect too, especially that older generation. They've laid the pathway and the foundations for the next generations to come through, and we learn from it. But we also need to still take our own actions to have the impact that we're looking for, and learn from that. So again, environment, ecosystem, like it all comes down to, I guess, creating high impact leaders.
Yeah, and I always like to bring this into it where I can, and so one of the most impactful things that I've had the privilege of doing, and this had been driven by, and is still driven by my wife mainly, but I love it, is the ability to care for kids. So the foster care side of things. Now, that's an impact that drives me and gives me energy for lots of various reasons around who I am as a person in my DNA, but I can tell you honestly, and I'm not trying to sell fostering to people. What I'm saying is that what makes the biggest difference to the kids that we have the privilege of working with is one-on-one time. So that the privilege I've had in having the opportunity to work with different families, and look, it's not all smooth sailing, far from it. There's lots of up and downs in that process, but you've got to remember that you're just trying to do the best you can and help those children, help those families in a way that you're charged and authorized to help. But the power of relational conversation, one-on-one conversation, or if it's a bub, just spending time and connecting through the eyes. Like, all that is development stuff. And I'm no expert on child development and all that sort of stuff, but I continue to learn. But just that ability for, you know, a baby to connect with the parents or someone's eyes, that's the connection thing that they're building. And that's the stuff that creates healthy attachment in the future. Well, that's the stuff you need to do with your team. I'm not saying just sit there and stare at each other in the eyes, but putting deliberate time into each other, spending time with each other, but in a constructive and efficient way. And again, to me, that's where Master One-on-One Meetings comes in. If you can master the art of having a simple ecosystem and structure around one-on-one meetings, you're spending that time, you're being deliberate with each other, but there's still an underwriting thing. Hey, we need to perform, and we've got some expectations, we've got some goals, but I'm here to support that. And yeah, people work better when they feel supported in their role. That's a fact.
And it's sort of like a flow-on effect too. You know, all the people interactions we have, there's some sort of flow going. You know, the energy we put out and we put in, there's a big flow-on effect with that. So, and that's great. Like with the foster kids and that, like it's really purpose, passion, right? And everyone deserves some sort of chance, and that's something that connects with others too. But yeah,
we get a lot out of it, and yeah, it's like I said, don't get me wrong, it's challenging. There's no doubt about it, but I believe it makes me first of all a much better human, a better person, but more importantly for my clients, it makes me a much better coach as well, because my ability to listen, my ability to empathize, my ability to really be interested in trying to understand what's driving that, because you've always got to, it's like trying to piece a puzzle together when you've got no idea about the picture that's in front of you, because that's like, as carers, we don't get all the history, with privacy laws and all that sort of stuff. We, the caseworker may know, what's happening in the background and stuff, but we're only privileged to small sections of that. So we're trying to piece this thing together. And again, people are the same, big, small, or whatever. You've got to take some time, learn their stories, make that happen, build that rhythm. And from there, all of these things start to flow and the momentum builds, and all these things we've talked about.
Well, that's very respected. So I respect everything that you're doing there, Brenna, and same Scotty. Like both having just this conversation, right? It's all learning and engaging, and you're all doing amazing work in the work that you're doing and what you're involved in. So thanks for just looking to, before we wrap up today, Brendan. How can people find out more about your people impact system?
Mate, the best thing is you can certainly follow my socials. I'm active on various ones, but LinkedIn is probably the main platform. You can find me as Brendan Rogers, and there's a Leader by Design page there as well. Or you can just go to my website at leaderbydesign.au, and then you can, there's a little chat bot down there to send me a message or anything like that, talking AI. So that's probably the easiest and best place if you wanted to have a conversation.
Awesome, and thanks, Scotty, for joining the session today. And that's it. So thanks for tuning in. And to end it, I'm a certified System 1357 coach. Reach out if you'd like any help in how we can help with creating high impact leaders. Get in touch.
Thanks
Brendan.
Really appreciate it.